Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, that's loud. Good afternoon, everybody. It's RT here with Hxro Labs, episode 43. And Nick, how are you, Nick?
Hey, doing good, man. Lots of good market action this morning.
Welcome back. We got our fancy pants desk on with the website in the background, herolabs.io. If you haven't checked it out, take a look at it. Fire us off some feedback if you have like, oh man, I really want this on your site. We will get it. That's what we're going to do. We're going to build that thing up until it is your favorite place to hang out when you're thinking crypto. Now, let's dive right in. I mean, we've got a lot going on today. Nice little pullback in the majors in the last hour or two. I believe both of us had a short setup actually from the top. Mine was on the 15-minute. I don't know about yours.
4 hour.
4 hour. Yeah. So 4 hour. That's more bearish. 15-minute scalp. I had short, just closed actually. So I will let that one lie and I'll come talk about it later. And the Dixie might be turning the corner today. We're going to talk a little bit about that, dive into what we think the DeFi might be doing. I had a long fire on it, and right now Nick sees it, thinks it looks a little bearish. And the one thing I'm long on, weirdly, on my futures account is actually YFI. So that thing's up a little bit, like 4%. But when you trade with leverage, it's 40%, which is exciting. But it's not a huge position, so I'm not going crazy for it. But that's really how you should trade, right? Every trade should be meh. Like, you know, if you kind of keep your trade meh type of way, then it really helps with the roller coaster that is trading. Keep you kind of flatlined. It's boring as hell, but look at your equity curve in a few years. I imagine you will be somewhat excited. So that's what I'm doing here with the YFI, and we'll talk about that. We'll get into the charts. Nick has some interesting information on the COT report with the Dixie. It's a little teaser for a little midway through the show. And then we're just going to pull back and go crazy with the altcoins and whatever other chart requests, conversation stuff. If you guys have, TradingView loves the new desk. Good to see you guys in here. If you guys have any requests, sort of even like beyond coins, I think sometimes when there's stagnation in the market, I don't know that we're seeing that, but just for example, then sometimes it's nice to just ask questions about other stuff like, what the hell is that friggin' tool you use all the time? Or how do I design my fib that way? And so any of that kind of stuff, I would encourage you guys to ask because we're here. And real quick, I spent a lot of time yesterday kind of trying to finalize the How to Spot a Trend Reversal Part 3. And I've been talking about that quite a bit. And I realized, first of all, as I rewatched Part 1 and 2 to make sure they flowed really well, I kind of covered everything in Part 1 and 2 for how to spot a trend reversal. Part 3 was going to be how to trade a trend reversal. And I was making it, and I realized, holy shit, this is an entire educational course. Every time I thought about talking about something else, I then went, well, I got to explain this and I got to explain that. So it was a bit hairy. I think we may have to pivot from that Part 3 video, and we're going to take a step, a little bit more 101 trading stuff to build towards ultimately what I had envisioned for Part 3. So full disclosure, I might have shit the bed there on the overall early planning of that, but it is what it is. In fact, most of what I was talking about yesterday while recording that is stuff we talk about every day on Hxro Labs Live. So I hope that makes sense. Vimsy, I'm looking at you. If you're here today watching, I know you've been keen to see that, and I will tell you right now, you're getting it every day with Hxro Labs Live. We'll figure out what we want to do with that pre-record. So moving on, I'm going to get my screen share going. I want to get the
Bitcoin.
Oh, jinx. Is this the one? Oh, I'm always... Did I share the right one? Yeah, there it is. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. I actually want to zoom out a little further because we've had such momentous breakout this week. And obviously that's riding on the PayPal news that came out on, I believe it was Tuesday morning, because on the Monday stream, I was talking about waiting for the volume. And on the Tuesday morning, we got that news from PayPal. They are long on Bitcoin. And even though they're not going to allow someone like us to take what we have in crypto, deposit it onto PayPal, and then spend it, which sucks, we could take what we have in crypto, sell it, put it in our bank account, take that, sign up to PayPal, buy more crypto through PayPal, probably at a premium, let's be real, and then spend it. So it's a little bit convoluted. I imagine that's to do with regulations and their bit license and all this stuff. I mean, if they're allowing us to basically funnel our crypto through their stuff and spend it, that I'm sure there's another layer of diciness to that. So it makes sense. And it doesn't really matter. That's 300 and something million people that are now going to have crypto at their fingertips with the cash they already have in PayPal and the money they already have moving through there. So,
Yeah, I think a big question on that, though, is going to be we need clarification on how PayPal is going to be handling those funds internally.
yeah, well,
the crypto, more importantly. You don't want to be seeing
how they're
some
managing
fractional
it.
reserve lending going out with cryptocurrencies.
That's a really good point. Also, PayPal hacked. Like, imagine that kind of news story coming out. So interesting to see. I imagine with their funding and their general size that they've got it pretty well squared away as far as managing all that, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, yesterday the news came out that they're doing some window shopping to acquire custodian, BitGo, right?
Yeah.
And I've already spoken with a few large clients of BitGo, and they would move. They would leave BitGo if that were to happen. We got to remember, guys, like crypto, 2009 to 2014, very anti-establishment, very anti-institutional. Crypto was supposed to be the technology that changed everything, democratized everything, distributed everything. That's not happening anymore. This asset class has been firmly taken over by the institutions, and the retail folk will be quickly priced out. So I think the crypto will not consume the institutions. The institutions will consume crypto and meld it to their own ways. When the CME first came out, they said they would tame Bitcoin. They've done it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I've got this one uncle of mine who's a software engineer, and he did a lot of stuff, telecom and development. And he's been the Uber bear through all of my time in crypto. Every time I, go up, see the family, and it's like, hey, how's your Bitcoin doing? Right. Like, and, but I mean, he's a really smart guy in general. So early on, I kind of was like, oh, what? You don't think he's like, no, it's not even original. The blockchain existed in the 80s. I'm like, what? So, I mean, I won't get into that because I really never knew what he was talking about. But he said that, and that was his thing. He's like, well, it's not going to change anything. The powers that be will move into that and do all their same games through that. I guess the one game that they cannot replicate is the old, backdoor printing of money to steal from savers. So they're going to, there's going to be new rules. And I'm sure, as humans do, they will find ways to maneuver through those new rules to enrich themselves. But I still think the sovereign currency vibe is great. And I think it's interesting that for it to really moon.
Is it really sovereign though? Like in the sense that, the governments could just blacklist everything. And if you have all the majority of the holdings custodied by legacy institutions, they will blacklist and take your money. That's why this is dangerous.
Well, yeah. I mean, the more integration of that comes, I guess that risk increases. But at the end of the day, we just saw $35 million transaction on Ethereum.
Yeah.
Who's the gatekeeper to that? I'm sure that there wasn't a whole lot of may I please. They just sent it, right? So I'm not going to get too bearish on that. I think it's interesting because a lot of people, like you say, there's this mantra of, down with the institutions and we're going to do our own thing. But at the same time, it's like, hey, we're going to send this to the moon. Well, who do you think is going to send this thing to the moon?
Exactly.
But that's why I was so bullish on it because, and I said this repeatedly through 2017, 2018, even into 2019. People are like, well, how do you know it's going to come back? And I said, look, the people who decide what things get to become things have decided that this is going to be a thing. Mm-hmm. Now, as weird as it sounds, or how many times I use the word thing, it's as vague as hell. But you know what I mean? Like those who decide, like imagine you're managing a whole lot of wealth, your bank or whatever you want. And you see something like Bitcoin come along, you think to yourself, holy shit, I can make so much money off of that thing. That thing is like a drop in the bucket. I mean, why would they not be attracted to that? Who cares if it's threatening something they have that's going on? I mean, they must see the Ponzi that they've built with all of this, all the bullshit and games that are being played in major markets and inflation and blah, 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 and printing. And how could they not look at this and just have their mouth watering and want in? And at this point, if anyone's not paying attention to it or ignoring it, it's probably because it's still too small.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's like the equivalent of somebody like us. I mean, we don't get to say like, it's hard to see through the eyes of a whale sometimes because we're sitting here, I could buy and then sell a full portfolio full of Bitcoin and I don't even move the needle, right? I go all in Bitcoin and then I go, no, I'm getting back out and I sell it all. The freaking candle wouldn't even move. But these guys, they probably couldn't even put 1% of their wealth into Bitcoin. Some of the, I'm talking about like some of these major movers of markets, the JP Morgans, the whoever's, they put 1% of their shit in, they can't. They'd have to do it over time. So it's just too small. There's no liquidity for them at the mass scale. And if you want to know what that feels like, go find some shitcoin on Uniswap that has $1,200 in liquidity and try to buy $50,000 worth of it.
Good luck.
That's probably the way we look at those little coins and say, ha, I couldn't get that. I can't even get it back out. Like, how am I going to 10x my 10 grand with $1,000 liquidity? I mean, the way that we look at those coins is probably how a lot of big institutions look at Bitcoin still.
That's exactly it.
And so the point is, the future is friendly, whether or not they take it over, whether or not, all that political crap. Bottom line is there's money coming in, and they can't grow the walls to fit more. Like, they can't print more. They're going to have to push the price.
They're going to have to, and that exactly. It is bullish for price. I do not deny that, and that's super exciting. But it's definitely bearish on the early ideologies of the space.
Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to pivot. They're gonna have to fork it again. BSV, BCH, stay away from me, Bitcoin. Kind of. We'll see. But I'm pretty excited. PayPal's big news, and let's get back to this chart here. The weekly broke out in a big way. This is a huge level. It marked a big drop in February 2018. It marked the candle close high in July 2019. It marked sort of a turtle soup fake out earlier this year in August. And then we just blasted through it sort of with authority, as you'd say. And the ABCD harmonic just got front run on the smaller move. And there's a larger one at play here that could take us up to all of these fib extension levels, the chaos level drawn off this consolidation from back in May, as well as the higher resistance that is now resting all the way up at 16,000. Suddenly, it's exciting to even talk about these levels, but they are back in play. But one level at a time, and 13.5 seems to be the front run resistance of choice right now, which would mark sort of a match to what we saw in July 19. So we haven't even really exceeded the highs from last summer. And yet, with this kind of structural breakout, I mean, you got to remember this was the bigger one. Well, get that magnet out of here. This was the bigger one before. We had our lows, we had a really cheeky low here. Didn't really go down much. And that breakout, and we just retested it and take off. And this was a big level right here at 11,000. That's where I had to say, like, even on part 2 of how to spot a trend reversal, I was saying, if down here I was pretty bearish. I was like, look, that's a bearish retest. It looks like we're here. The sell volume was picking up. But if we break above 11, I got to change my tune. I got to be really quick to flip my bias, not hang on to my bearishness, because I'm not a bear. I am a trader. And so today I'm bearish, tomorrow I'm bullish, and the chart will guide me. So that was a pretty easy flip to make once that closed up here. And so, happy to say I'm back into my spot longs and not really rushing to cut them up here just yet. We're going to talk a little bit about why. For now, today's drop is really just forming the downside of a pennant on Bitcoin. I think ETH was a little more harsh. Talk a little bit about why I think so in a sec, because the ETH BTC chart still looks like shit. But this has been really clean price action on this move up. If you were around last weekend, that was sort of an away weekend for me. Actually, the producer and I and a friend were up north having sort of a crypto annual weekend we've done for a couple years now. So that was great. And we were just sitting here like, look at this, resting on the range EQ, resting on the pump chaser. There was still no major stamp of bull volume to say we're going to head up, but leaning towards a range high visit after reclaiming that EQ and just holding it for days. I mean, it wasn't to be like some cheeky sweep of the highs and drop. The fact that we stayed up there was a really strong signal. And then coming into the week, it was actually the PayPal news that just blasted us through the top of these range highs. And now we've got a new pump chaser fib to work with, which is confluent with this bullish throwback. And on the low side is confluent with the range highs, as well as sort of a VPVR value high, which is just still creeping up around like only 12,000. So I don't see us, in a rush to get back down here, but I would not be shocked if we do come and visit, 12.5. That would actually probably be a buy for me, like as far as adding on in what is now a pretty strong bull trend. I mean, this is a lot of buy volume. So of course we could look back and say, oh, it was just PayPal news, and then the market rolled over anyways, and it was just like it was like the China pump, which just drifted into the oblivion. What was that back here? I suppose we could use that as an example, right? This was like Chinese government announced something really bullish. It was, lots of volume at the time came in. So it's like, oh yeah, we're going to trend up. And then it just died. I don't think we're going to do that. I don't think we have the same situation, but yeah, I'm not going to rule that out. I think for now it's going to be consolidate, chop, maybe even get a nasty wick down. Again, thinking back to this higher time frame chart, the most bearish I could see things on this kind of level is like, I think we're into an uptrend here, and it's looking really good. But again, one level at a time. Am I trading that kind of high time frame stuff? Not really. In fact, the only trade that I took through this, not the only trade, but the trade I was looking at on Ethereum is this. Oh no, it's this one. My bad. Real quick, take a look at this little cheeky scalp. And, coming up, we had a wedge rising up. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Nick. Price was going up, price going up, price going up. And the MACD was staying negative. And in fact, it wasn't even like sliding back up. Usually it'd be like, oh, look, and it's, that's a bearish divergence.
What time frame?
15-minute. It stayed flat. It was really weird. This histogram stayed flat and then came down. So like that was a pretty sick signal. You actually mentioned that to me yesterday, the rising wedge.
Yeah.
Now trying to trade it is tricky. I mean, it's really tricky, and you can see why right here. I didn't try to trade the breakout of this, and I'm really glad because it did break down and then just squeezed up, like asshole move, squeezed up. Anyone who traded that breakdown got washed out unless they had the wherewithal to put their stop up above 422. But I don't typically trade those like that. In this case, especially with all the bullishness in the market, I figured there's going to be some washing, but then you just follow the breakdown from it. And yeah, I'm like, oh shit, I missed it, but not really. Get that short RLZ working, come back up into these highs. And this was actually a paper trade for me because I didn't, I had a few drinks last night. So my trading plan said, don't trade, but I set it up and I paper traded it and actually smacked today at this bullish throwback right here. So I'll chalk one up for the paper. And then this is why. This is why I think it's makes sense, and that's why it made sense to me to be taking some shots up against these highs on Ethereum, because if you look at ETH BTC, it came up here after tagging the 618. Yeah, there's some bullish divergence, and there should be some buyers stepping in, and sure enough, there was. But look at the volume, pretty piss poor showing. Nobody's really buying that. Certainly not like we're going to put a bottom in this market type buy volume. So that bounce up was pretty suspect to me, and we're at sort of a double resistance with the trend line, the VPVR triple really, and the horizontal. This kind of key support turned resistance doesn't, I don't think, break on the first try. Would you agree, Nick?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that.
Seem a little strange for us to lose that huge level. Now, if it is, that's just some savage, fake out stuff, and then we get back up and go. And that would be awesome, but I'm not going to bet on it. So from
a structural point of view, though, I would really love to see it fill that gap back down to 0.03.
Oh, I'd feel so much better about everything.
Yeah.
If this got filled in, right now I have a hard time taking big positions. Like I want to build some positions like DOT and AVAX and some other big alts, like Solana you talked about being interested in. If this got down here, again, because ETH BTC, until it's not, is the proxy for the altcoins versus Bitcoin. If this got in here in some way, maybe it's even just like a quick wick, whatever it is, if we could fill that zone, my God, the confidence I would have in just taking some shots on long setups on some of those other coins would skyrocket. And so I look forward to that. If it does happen, that's great. And then we can get back to business on the long side. But for now, when it comes to altcoins, I got to trade away my Bitcoin for them. I'm not doing it right now on that note. Look at this dominance. This is the last chart I want to flip through, and then I want to flip over to your take on the Dixie and some of the COT reports. This dominance anomaly, really interesting stuff. We got to figure out what the hell's going on here, because if you look there, it's like, well, what the hell happened? But then you look on the 4 hour and the thing shot up to 76%. So clearly the word here is an anomaly. I don't think I could give much weight to either of those moves. Right now it's up here. In fact, I refreshed it earlier and it was gone. So let's see if that works again. Nope, it's back. But it was gone, it's gone, it's back, it's gone. So I'm sure that will disappear. This chart is a little bit different. It's calculated on a back testing kind of thing. So like if the algorithm changes, sometimes you go back and the whole chart will change. For example, when I drew this up, that gap was not here. And then something like a month ago, everything just dropped down and shifted, and I had to move this down with it and all that. So it's not like a price chart. When a price chart, see even here, you can see that anomaly just above. I actually blocked it with like a little black line because it's just not real. Anyways, so I may end up doing that here if this doesn't disappear in the next few days. For now, though, we are back up against this resistance, which is where you would expect this to have its first pause. And again, driven by ETH BTC is where expect to have its first pause. So all this makes sense. And then the real question is, where from here? Do we go up? Do we go down? And given that Bitcoin, ETH BTC is at that big resistance area with not a whole lot of buying interest, for that to break out would mean this would have to come back down. So in other words, for this to go back down, ETH BTC would have to break out. So for now, probability wise, I am leaning towards, maybe some consolidation here, but ultimately I still think that Bitcoin dominance is going to reign supreme, likely until mid-November, leaning on that, which makes it hard for me to take large shots in altcoins, but definitely going to be some really nice trades in between now and then. And lastly is the Dixie, but I think I'll let you speak to the Dixie. I've got it on this sort of slide down here to this old support, kind of confluent with this chaos levels and all that. But what are you seeing? You saw a big flip in some regard.
Yeah, it's the COT data, but this, so taking a quick look here, we'll take a look at it from a structural point of view. And again, disclaimer, I'm looking at this from a macro perspective. There's a lot of variables that go into why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking. I won't get into it all now, but just from a chart point of view, yeah, I can see why people would be initially bearish on this, right? We came back up. I'm just going to delete this. We came back up, retested the breakdown point. This is a huge yearly level and stuff, but we haven't broken support, right? It's kind of just like consolidating in this range. And to be fair, like if we're really going to be getting macro bearish on the dollar, this thing hasn't even broken down monthly support. Like, calm down. Calm down with the dollars going to zero calls. It's not happening. If anything, we're seeing renewed dollar strength around the globe, especially in the emerging markets through bond issuances and things like that. I think it's only going to accelerate, like the coronavirus. It's absolutely. I just got off some calls with people in Europe, and they're fearful of more lockdowns, and that's just going to mean more QE from ECB. Are we going to see deeper negative interest rates? Like, there's so much uncertainty right now in other currencies and other around the world. The natural flight is into the US dollar when things really do get bad. And if that were to happen, I would be very fucking scared of what was about to happen in the world. I think eventually Bitcoin and crypto will decouple. It's just not going to happen overnight. But anyways, yeah, as long as, again, above this 1165 level, you can't be bearish. In fact, the monthly Stoch is coming into a bottoming thing here. And again, if we move back above this 1215 area here, I'll bring it back to the 4 hour. This is going to be bad news bears for crypto, in my opinion. So again, keep your alarm set on this, guys. If I were you, load up your USD charts, throw an alarm like 11.9 or something, and on the upside, probably on this local range here is going to be key, right? If we see a move back over this 12,100, I think we'll have the momentum to fucking break this level and make a new high. Like, look at market structure now, right? We got a higher high, and technically a higher low off these right now, 1, 2, 3. So as long as we're holding those, it's okay. We're stuck in the range. More importantly, what I thought was really interesting was the COT data here. So again, this just measures the net positions of funds and institutions. And we just saw a flip on the USD, first time in 4 months. They've been net short on that for a while. I'm just trying to find the right one here. Here we go. Yeah. So yeah, COT, after staying short US dollar index futures for 17 weeks, large speculators switched to net long. What do they know, right? So keeping a very close eye on this stuff right now, because if this trade works out, a lot of people are going to be on the wrong side of the trade, and it's going to be a fucking boomer, in my opinion. So yeah, keeping a very close eye on this, on how the funds are getting positioned. If we see dollar strength, that's weakness in commodities, that's weakness in crypto, and that's also going to be weakness against all the other fiat currencies, right? And that's going to bring me to my gold, quick little segment here on gold. No reason to be a bull just yet, short term, right? We're still below that key bearish throwback level that we've been highlighting both in our streams and weekly newsletters. at 1940. So, if you don't already have alarms set, set those alarms around like 1940. Above those levels, the bull is back, right? This thing's ready to fucking go. We'll be targeting, this 2020 range, right? Or right here, right off this, right here is the sweet spot, right? So it's actually very similar to what we see in the low time Ethereum stuff, right? This high here getting filled. So if we take a quick look back here at Ethereum, look what's happened just now, right? Exact same setup, right? This is the swing failure pattern that formed here back in September. This was untested. We call this I call it a price inefficiency that has to get filled. Sure enough, we've come back, we filled it, a little respect off that bearish throwback. What we're seeing now, we put out the call that this thing was likely to have a little pullback. We're like, as long as the price is holding above this like 392, 393-ish level, it's bull. It's bull. I would be looking for longs down in this block as well. This is this is a really interesting stuff. This broke out previous range resistance, and now this is trying to flip to support. So it's natural that we do get a little price reaction at that level. However, now what we're looking for, we'll take this down a little step further. So this is a good trade management, right? So we've confirmed the move, and now what we need to do, we're probably going to see a little bit of pullback back upwards here. And what you need to do, if you haven't already taken some profit on your shorts, which you should have at this level, we need to rechart the former range support, right? So if price is going to be bearish for continuation, it's probably going to come back up into this, 411, 412 region, right? And if we see that sloping, declining volume, very similar to what you were just talking about on ETH BTC there, not a lot of buying volume into that resistance. Odds are, if bears step in, it can be a very high velocity move back down, right? So we'd be looking for something like this to come back in. If it did something like that, creates that lower high, well, God, what a gift, right? And then we'd be expecting the drop into the bullish throwback.
And that would wreck a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Still maintain the higher time frame bullishness. And I think that's what people need to remember. You get a week like this, you get so caught up in the bullishness. And it's so easy, right? I mean, even just seeing some people in chats right now, just like, yeah, I slept like a baby with my longs. And it's like, oh God, right? Because that's when they come in and play these games. It's Friday, shutting the markets down, taking their profit, closing up their weeks, let it shit during the weekend. And then we can maybe rally it Monday.
Exactly.
But I really like that setup. It's actually what I'm watching for as well.
I think so. And the same thing on like Bitcoin right here. Bullish throwback. This thing, market structure, we're at resistance, don't long resistance, don't be that guy. But, it's still bullish. As long as we're above 12.4, 12.2, this region right here, I'd be looking to get long here, to be honest. If we do get that gift down here, I don't think, if it does get down here, it'll probably just be like a wick.
Pump chaser zone, baby.
Yeah. So, I'd be looking to rebuy this area. And, it hasn't even broken the range support yet. So, check an alarm on that thing, 12.69 or something. But like you said, there's a lot of buy side demand on Bitcoin specifically right now. And it could be tougher to move down. Very similarly how we were saying in our Wednesday stream, that as the market cap of Bitcoin increases, it becomes more increasingly hard to move up. Well, it's the same thing on the inverse, right? Higher notional volume to move it down on the USD.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Classic moment. I want you to take over and talk about that COT report for a sec.
Okay.
Naturally, I have a Amazon package banging on my door right now. 1 sec.
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we can quickly look at the VIX here too, because this is the other play that I'm really watching into the election. I'm, obviously expecting naturally, volatility usually gets sold, but I'm expecting a spike into the election, right? And honest, we got a nice little range forming here. For election spike volatility, I'll be looking at 40, 44, 57, and the reason why I think it's another going to be a really good trade is because look at that. Everybody's fucking net short on VIX futures right now. 34-week high net short on VIX futures. It's just unbelievable. I just don't get the thinking rationale going into the election here. And I think we're going to have extended volatility after the election. We're not necessarily going to know the results right away either, right? So a lot of interesting things setting up here, guys. The election is like 12 12, 11 days away or something. So, I think there's a lot of capital on the sidelines right now, waiting for confirmation of which administration is going to be manning the wheel for the next 4 years. And once we have confirmation on that, the election is settled. I think we'll see deployment of that money. However, again, we got to keep an eye on the coronavirus stuff right now. It's going to have an impact, especially the responses from the central banks, especially if economies start to slow down, not necessarily shut down completely, but we could see a slowdown. And that will spur some growth for more QE. I know the Fed last week, after taking a pause from buying assets in the S&P, they are buying more. I believe they purchased around like 75 or 100 billion bucks worth as of last Thursday, I believe, the last thing I read. So, that's just that strong underlying bid in the equity markets going into the election here right now, right? This is, it's still a bullish market structure. We did come back off these 3,500 levels. This is the bullish throwback, right? If you're long for continuation, and you have a long bias, bull bias going into the election or shortly after, this is the range. It's a good level to buy, right? This 3,400. It's the former all-time high block. We had a little range resistance. It's trying to flip to support. It's a really nice hammer candle. In terms of like confirmation of this thing moving back up, I'd probably be looking for a close above this level, actually right where my alarm is, right? Around that 35.30 level or so. Right. So again, a lot of great setups coming here right now. Not all of them have, confirmed, pulled the trigger just yet, but a lot of good stuff going on. So let's take a quick look at some of the alts as RT gets that beautiful packet.
I'm back, by the way. Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually a microphone we're going to be using for a little bit more mobile content coming up. So that's exciting.
Perfect. Anyways, BNB, really intense volatile price action here. A bullish throwback level we've been watching. Look at the respect. Look at the wicks into this level, and they just keep getting longer. Long wicks signify rejection of that down thrust, or long wick to the top, the rejection of the up thrust. In this case, this is just constant confirmation confirming this level for me. I think BNB flies if it can break through this 32.3 level. We've already talked about upside targets initially, 37. Basically this $35 to $37 range is what we would be looking for on that. In terms of what a breakout on BNB would look like, it would probably look something like this. There we go. Okay, so okay, so we get a break above the range, right? We hit these levels here. I know it's a bad line, don't judge me. And we're going to be looking for this range resistance to flip to support. So what do we have formed there then? A consolidation range. And this is the trade that we want to see set up. I'm not so much interested in like here to here. I'm interested in the move that comes after this is confirmed. It's the next staircase up, right? If it confirms this range as support, I'm going to be looking for the monster fucking move. I want the range expansion. I want these highs swept, right? That's what I'm looking for. This is what I'm expecting. And this is going to be the real opportunity here on BNB. So don't fret, set some bids down here if you are looking for a fill. It might wick down. I don't know. It's been pretty volatile there, but invalidation point would probably be, a break of $22, right? In terms of like the market structure break. So again, the invalidation of a trade can be different than the invalidation of a market structure, right? Especially on higher time frames. This is a daily chart. So as long as this $18, $19, $20 level holds, everything would be fine, right? But if you're trading this, right, you're going to want to be getting out well before it gets down there. Otherwise, fuck that. I'm not taking that downside. Anyways, but great setup there.
I actually just had a short fire on BNB. I'm not in it because all this crazy bullishness scared me out of some of my asks that I had set from weeks ago, actually. But flip over to my screen here, John. I'll just real quickly. I mean, I think this comes back to really knowing yourself as a trader and what time frame you're looking at. Looking at BNB on the daily, it just looks really bullish. So why would I be shorting it? Well, it's more just because I'm not going to long it from here. The way that I look for trades, right? I've got this big squeeze up, lots of volume, and then the selling volume kicked up. And so as we come back up into the short LZ, I'm watching closely. I see some of the momentum start to roll over. Actually, not as much right here. But in general, like last weekend, again, up north, it's like, okay, like this little stomp down, if I can get a squeeze back up into the short LZ, I'll take a look. And then this happened. This is why I'm not in it. This happened, missed my asks, which were actually right up a little higher, and then just dropped. So I was like, well, hell, if we come back up here now, we're going to have a little more energy. I don't necessarily want to have that same setup. Well, sure enough, it came back up, filled me up perfectly, like to a pip, and just is in the process of confirming new structure. So that happens. But we might confirm this. Actually, there's still an hour and a half left. But if that confirms, I mean, this is another one I will add to the list of trades that I have missed in my life. What was I saying on Monday? I think 467. That's how many mistakes I've made. So we're working our way towards 1,000. You're going to have to make hundreds and hundreds of hundreds. The key is learning from them and not making the same one too many times. Now, in general, I was just like, what am I running into short on PayPal news? Now, one of the things that somebody asked about, Soheil just asked about this, is this 4669 fib, or the Feigenbaum constant. Feigenbaum, or chaos PRZ is what I call it. Now, I can't give you a full rundown on this because I don't know enough about it to be a teacher, but I will tell you how I use it, and I will tell you where you can learn more. And what's funny is the two videos, I just went over and asked some guys about it, and they fired me off the links. I haven't even watched those two. Okay, I've watched Brian Beamish, the head over at TRI. He's talked about it a lot and kind of walked me through it, and so I just use it based on that. I never actually went and watched the original videos where he first heard about it, but I will put those links in the chat today because it's a fascinating topic. And actually, now that I'm sharing them with you, I am going to go watch the original. It looks pretty complex, but bottom line is it's this idea. See if I can do this in 1 minute. Through this consolidation, there is said to be this sort of pent-up energy. And when it breaks to the upside, how is that energy then expressed? Can we calculate a way to measure based on sort of the vibrations in that consolidation, how that will then get expressed to the upside? And so how would you draw it up? Well, you would have, again, 4669 and then 877. And you draw from, and this is where it gets tricky, and this is where there's probably some debate, and somebody might even watch this and say, well, I actually draw it this way. But you basically take the middle, the neckline that's sort of the top of this consolidation with the right shoulder before it broke out, and you just draw it from there, and it expresses itself upwards. But I mean, look at this stuff. And it doesn't happen perfectly all the time, as most tools are not like that. But you can see here, price smacked right into it and then fell off. And then it continued, and then price smacked right into this level. And that marked the top. So, I mean, I just pulled this up quickly while you guys were, while you were talking, Nick, but I mean, that's one quick example of how you could have used this. Now, do I trade off that only? No, but you'll see it on my charts as sort of an extra layer of confluence. I bet there was some other stuff I could have done for targets there, like, like a fib extension, something like that. They'll take you up into that level, but it's a really cool little tool I use, Chaos PRZ. And actually, I will fire these over now into the chat. And if you guys want to do a little more research, these are the two videos that were brought to my attention just now when I asked their lobby where the heck we all learned about this chaos level. So check those videos out. I'm going to do the same, and we could talk about it a little more. It's a fascinating concept.
Yeah. While you were going over that, I just noticed Intel got absolutely smashed, 12%. And just reading this data here, it's super interesting. Obviously, AMD is taking a huge chunk, so is NVIDIA moving into the data center space. But 47% drop in enterprise and government unit. That's significant. And the reason, that's really bad moving forward, because investors are going to see that as, that thing's headed close to zero, right? So that could be really interesting. More importantly, though, from a trading point of view, I was looking at this chart. I love sharing great setups with you. This looks very similar to what we saw on ETH-BTC, right? Massive weekly. I think this is a two-year consolidation level. Support level. If this thing gets broken, there's going to be a very, very high momentum move off of this. So I normally don't trade stocks, but I'm going to be looking at this one. This could be a really great trade. And Intel's been having troubles for a while, and this could be a big shift in the CPU market as well. So I think there could be something here. I think this is something we should be keeping our eyes on, adding it to my watch list.
Intel Corp. All right, I'm going to add that to mine as well. Speaking of stocks, well, okay, no, let me rephrase that. I have one stock trade, but let's take a quick look, because I went to my stock template and it's actually a Trump chart. I just thought this was interesting. What the hell is going on the Trump 2020 future? We've seen that it's kind of bottoming out around. Now, this would be sort of a binary result. In other words, if he wins, it would, I would assume, expire at $1. And if he loses, it will expire at 0. So you are betting on probabilities. Right now, this chart is saying he has like a 37. So the market thinks he has a 37.6% chance of winning. And that's interesting because a lot of the polls I looked at yesterday were saying 46 and 48 and 44. So you could argue, based purely on polls, that this is underpriced. I won't get into the politics of it. I'm Canadian. I just get to watch and eat popcorn and, stay fairly out of it.
Yeah, but I generally don't believe polls. Like, if they're from the right, Trump's winning. If they're from the left, Biden's ahead by 10 points. Well,
so that's it. So I clicked on, see all polls, and I scrolled down because I was like, okay, what does the Fox News poll say? And it's like 47. And then, CNN was actually one of the highest. It was like 48.5. So, but you're right. I mean, I think it depends where you get your sources. I certainly am not, like, even in Canadian elections, I don't look at the polls. I certainly am like, who the hell even answers these things? Where does this data come from? I've never been polled in my life. I don't fit the demographic, maybe. I don't know. But I did find it interesting that this ABC harmonic objective tagged the fib extension from this move down, tagged to a pip, and then the Feigenbaum level that we just talked about actually came down, and you can use those negatively as well. And that kind of, so there's like a cluster of these like sort of objectives that were all tagged, and it's just like smacking into them and treating it as like a bottom. It's just kind of interesting. Now, one thing I thought about is potentially there might be a long setup on this. I'd have to look into the logistics of how it is settled. Is it settled on election day at midnight? Is it settled someday when they finally announce the new president on inauguration day? Who knows? But I imagine there will be some volatility in this leading up to the election. And I watched some video the other day that talked about, the idea that the Republicans will often lead in the early parts of an election day because the rural parts of the country are more often, the smaller districts are the ones that are voting, like the red states or whatever. And so they count them quicker. There's less votes to count, blah, blah, blah. They get the results sooner. So it may be the case that like on election day, we see like some Trump leading, even though that's just that. And then in the longer run, you may still not win because a lot of the blue states take longer to count, apparently. So I just thought that might be interesting. Like,
this period is going to be extended as well due to the mail-in ballots.
Yeah, and all that noise. But I after seeing that video, I was like, wait a sec, does that mean we could like long this, and then in election day it starts rallying because he's leading on the early counts, and then maybe just call it a day there, take your trade, and then whatever happens. I don't know.
I'd say be careful, because I remember trading the 2016 election, and right up until the end, the markets were definitely pricing a Hillary victory.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sharply reversed very quickly.
She was 76%. Imagine shorting that to 0. But she was a 76% like probability to win, which sounds like a gimme, but think about what they're really saying, right? There's a 26%, 24% chance that she's going to lose, which is a pretty high number too. So, for anyone who likes to read and wants to read a really good book, Super Forecasters, The Art and Science of Prediction. Highly recommend that book. It's probably the most interesting book I've read outside of directly about trading, and it is to do with trading. And ever since reading that, I become kind of a probability nerd, and things like the weatherman, it's like, well, the weather guy's wrong. He said 90% chance of rain. He's like, nah, bro, he said 10% chance of no rain.
Yep.
Right. And you just got to think about both sides of probability, and it's boring because people are obsessed with being right and predictions and all that. But bottom line is, you can't think of forecasting
was originated in Great Britain. Fun fact.
Oh, that is a fun fact. And mostly probably the best takeaway from that book, if I may, is that and then we're going to get into altcoins, because I see a whole bunch of altcoins piling up here in the requests, and we're definitely going to get to those next. But I'd say that my favorite part of that book was that they're finding, spoiler alert, was that a small group of experts, let's just say like the top 30 experts in their field for predicting big major political shifts, were no better at predicting the outcomes of major political events than the wisdom of the crowd when they pulled, say, 100,000 random samples of people across, wherever, which really goes into, the power of markets and the idea that, for example, sports spreads. Let's talk about, how the heck do these guys in Vegas, right? And then the NBA game, it's like a 6.5 point spread for your favorite team, and then you bet on them, and then they win by 6. And how many times does that happen where they get it within a half point? They don't set that and it sticks there, right? They set their opening spread, and money, the big bettors move the spread early, and then closer to game time, where the money lands on each side of the bet moves the spread. So really, the resulting spreads you get on sports are just the wisdom of the crowd, and that's how they're so freakishly close. So I wish there was some way you could have like real-time probabilities of crypto outcomes. That would be dope. But story for another time. For today, I think it's time to get into our list of coin requests. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. Get those charts. Let's get them rolling. I think I can start probably off. We got INJ. It's injective protocol. I'm really interested in that project. Actually,
who brought that up today? Somebody mentioned that on my friggin' Twitter yesterday, and I went and looked at it. It looks really good. And then I woke up and it was up 23%. I was like, dope.
I connected with that team back in February. They were working on
instantly listed on Binance, because it looks like they're somewhat in cahoots. So
they had really, really good backers, Cumberland and DRW and all those good.
Why don't you start off with INJ, and I'll
let's pull it up.
Take away the list here.
I guess we actually have a nice chart for it here. There's probably not going to be a lot of history on it. But let's take a look. All right, 4 hour. Wow, look at that. That's fantastic. So what was the sale price? Around like 75 cents or something like that. Let's see. We can't do too much charting on this, so we'll have to take it down to the 30-minute, and we'll go from there. But we can see some Wyckoff throwbacks getting respected. That's the great thing about trading with this system, right? Is that it works on all time frames, because humans repeat their behavior over and over. Okay, so what are we looking for here? Well, this is your support. And it's confirmed now as well with this recent retest. Unfortunately, if this makes a higher high on lower momentum, that's going to be a sign of weakness in the market. So keeping an eye on that. But yeah, if you're still long off here, I'm personally not looking to jump into this one right here. But if you are, as long as the 93 cents level is holding, I think the market structure is intact. If that fails, where's it going to go? Well, probably right back down to here, right? So that's what this would be, the really nice, nice little reload zone. 80 cents, 79 cents. Be looking for that. But right now, momentum, nice. It looks pretty good. You got one wave, two wave, three. I guess maybe we can call it 3 drives. I don't know. The slope doesn't look like it's blown off just yet, does it? But I guess we make the case 1 drive.
Oh, it's good.
2 drive.
I'm gonna go kick myself.
1, 2, 3, right? So yeah, maybe we see another spike up here. We got a nice little curve here, right? Look at that. Whoa! So whenever this breaks, this parabolic curve breaks, that's your short entry, and we will definitely see these levels retested. So don't beat yourself up if you're not already in this one. This thing is clearly on the hockey stick parabolic curve right now, and depending on what momentum does here, if we see this thing come up, make a lower high with prices making higher highs, clear hidden divergence on the on the Stoke, and you would be looking to exit your longs. Not necessarily jump into shorts, but at least taking some profit on those longs.
Yeah, damn. Sohail. Shout out to Sohail in the lobby. He nailed this thing yesterday. He tweeted at me at like 5 p.m. You want to flip over to my chart here, Johnny? Like, look at this guy calling bottoms, and actually on the 1 hour, right around then, I imagine it was actually just after I think this 1 hour. And I looked at it, I think it was on this candle, and I looked at it, I was like, holy shit, that's pretty dope. And then I zoomed in a bit, I was like, okay, like, hum ha, I'll take a look at it in the morning, see what happens. And I woke up and it was like up here, and I was like, oh, okay, kicked myself. So really nice call. The website does look promising, so gotta say, really impressed with your call on that one. I don't think you said like buy now, it's gonna moon, so like making a call goes, but you said, hey, this looks really good, check it out. It just went live and was instantly on Binance, so very cool. And I don't think it's done yet. I think market's not going anywhere. There might be another trade setting up on it. I'm going to erase all this old ink you can see on this uni chart. I was charting it weeks ago. I've kind of left it alone, but it's kind of coming back into an area where I might be interested. So let's take a look. We have this sort of old consolidation here. It's really hard to see. Holy shit, this thing was at 28 cents for someone. But let's take a look. I think, maybe framing from left to right with that old support there, that candle body close. And you can see prices respecting that level.
That's good.
If you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw my fib, and I'm going to see what location we are in. We just smacked off the sweet spot. I think that was for anyone who caught this bullish market structure right here, the confirmation, and then a nice breakout, some nice volume to stamp that and say, hey, we're a bunch of buyers and we're going to support price here. And now you get that standard kind of slow bleed back into it. So did we get the bullish markets or the bullish divergence? Well, yeah, we did indeed. You can see that down here. It's always, if you guys think, man, this is the same old thing every time, it really is. And it's like clockwork. And that's what trading is. If you can find a way to make money trading, like a method or a setup, you don't need 10,000 fancy tools and all this other stuff. And I'm sure there's so many different ways to skin the cat, of course. But, for me, it's like, okay, get that buy volume, stamp in the bottom, come over here, check for divergence. Oh, we're down in the RLZ, long it, measure risk, rinse, repeat, 1,000 times, and watch your account grow kind of vibe. That's the idea. Doesn't mean that this will fire, but I think that sweet spot would have been the entry I'd be looking for if I was trading this. And what's really cool about markets, though, is they're very fractally. So I bet you can zoom in here a little more, and we can actually find that same setup playing out right now for somebody who maybe missed it or is like really keen to still get in on it. And you can see here, don't love that sell volume coming in, but you can see here, bullish market structure, breakout, volume to sort of stamp that. And now we rise up and we're just kind of sliding back in. So is there a second chance here for somebody to have a setup a little more tightly played up here? I'd say absolutely. And that would probably look like something down in this area. And then, of course, you got to manage risk all the time, always protect your capital. And that would probably mean not risking to below this low here. So you'd have to risk about 420% on that position. And if I'm going to do that, I'd probably want to get at least 4-1 on my money, which I'm guessing is a short reload zone for the whole range, which makes this pretty sweet.
The fundamental news around Uniswap, though, is that the recent proposal to, we talked about this before, cost $50 million to, I guess at the high prices. So down here, it's less. But they were looking to reduce the amount of Uni tokens needed to issue proposals and stuff. It failed. They fell 1% short. They had 98% on board, and they could not reach that 99% quorum, and it failed. So something to work out there. They're probably going to have to go back to the drawing board on that, because right now it is still very restrictive to deploy any proposals right now. So they're probably going to have to recast that vote, or again, make some changes to it. Until that happens,
It's interesting though. Like, I wonder what do you need to do to vote, right? Because remember the whole kerfuffle with Steam and Binance and the big exchanges that got involved in the governance and the voting. And to do that, they essentially had to take Steam from their exchange and go and lock it up. And we talked a little bit speculatively about these CEXs swooping in to, they all listed Uni on day one. Is that because they're supportive of it, or is that because they wanted to control it? They want to have, all of that Uni locked up either in their accounts, but like I just wonder if they were voting on this stuff or whatever. Like
Essentially, it could be used as a hedge if in the future they start distributing a dividend, or sharing revenue through fees and stuff, right? The centralized exchanges, that they're the majority beneficiaries of that, they're happy.
Yeah. Now look at this trade. I mean, I love this stuff, right? Like you line it up just so you risk to this low. And it doesn't have to. Like I'd actually be more comfortable having a higher time frame setup, and not risking, having my risk below the 76. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, you draw this up as such, sweet spot, risk here, and then I just want to get my 4-to-1, and it's pretty much the sweet spot of this stuff. I mean, the whole friggin' market is so fractally, and if we do catch a rally through the weekend, some altcoins, whatever ends up happening, like this kind of thing, that wouldn't be that weird. And then just, I don't think that would be the bottom, but it's certainly, there's a trade in there.
Mm-hmm.
Just approaching any trade like this, I have to approach with the assumption that 50% of the time that thing's just going to get stopped out. And that's just, you can't stress that point enough. That anytime you're new to trade, don't ever try to go for it on one trade.
Yeah, it's a great point to make. Like having that knowledge in the head that 30 to 40% of your trades aren't going to work. That's okay. You're gonna be in a much better mental state to take those next trades. You could be losing 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row, right? And then you could win the next 6. If you are super deterred by those first 4 losses, you just gotta trust the system if you've done your back testing on it, right?
Yeah, and I'd love to say that I've figured that out and I'm perfect, but I mean, even I get rattled by that sometimes, and I'll take 1, 2, 3 losses in a row, and then I'm just kind of like, well, fuck, and then that's like even why this paper trade on ETHUSD, like I flip back and forth between real money and paper all the time, and sometimes it's for one reason or another, or I just look at something and I'm like, you know what, the whole market's super bullish, but that short setup looks great. I'm going to take that. I'm just going to take it on paper because I'm spot long and I like my longs. Like, it's okay to flip back and forth between real and paper trading. And I would actually recommend you stick to paper trading for quite a while until you're super confident in the specific setups and criteria you're looking for, because you can't lose money trading paper. You can't make any. That's the knock on it.
The only downside of that, though, is that you're not going to get the psychological conditioning that I believe you need to build. Like losing money in trading it's going to happen. Accept it. So you need to be able to handle that.
Well, you have to be willing to accept it. Yeah. And that's actually another good book, Trading in the Zone. Talks a lot about that. The idea of being fully at peace with the idea of losing your capital that you're putting at risk in a trade. And that way you can let the trade play out. And again, being able to do that. So if you struggle with that, I guess that's what I'll say as we get back to altcoins. If you struggle with that, if you're like, damn, I always chop myself out of my own trades, either your risk is too high, or you just need to go back to paper trading until you get confidence in your setups. So when they go a little bit against you, if you take 50 paper trades, and that takes a while if you're on a higher time frame. If you take 50 of them and you watch how they play out, and let's see, we got my uni chart still here. Like say this comes in and then it goes up and you're like, holy shit, I'm up. And then for like 3 days it bleeds out and it even comes up and it's getting, and then you're getting demoralized. You're like, oh no, I should have sold. I was in profit. Doesn't hit your stop loss. Goes up, doesn't hit your stop loss, doesn't, and then it finally goes and hits. Most people will close their position here at a small loss or a small gain. And if you find yourself doing that a lot, that is the value of paper trading, because once you see these things through, and again, like Nick said, there's less emotional attachment to a paper trade, so it's bad in some ways, but it's good in other ways because you won't just cut it like through here. You're like, well, I don't care, it's just paper. You'll actually do it the way you were supposed to with no emotional decisions involved. And if you can build that confidence up through that, then you can start to trust your process. And then when there is money at stake, you're like, yeah, but I know because I've actually traded this that I shouldn't be closing down here because my setup doesn't invalidate until this level. So my 2 cents on it. Paper trading is the least sexy sounding thing ever, but I got to say it has probably led me to a more profitable trading system more than just about anything else. This is my rant for today. Mini rant.
Yeah. Beauty Bubby, it's good to see you in here. I know she's an OG in the space as well in the TeamSpeak of the earlier times. So
hey, Beauty Bubble says, yeah, always open your day with 10 paper trades every day you sit down. If you're trading the 5-minute, that is possible. I tend towards the 4-hour, so it takes a lot longer to vet things. But like I said, this market is so fractally. So, I mean, yeah, on Uniswap, I see a 4-hour setup that kind of triggered the other day. I see a 1-hour setup that might trigger later today. You know, and even on the daily, there's likely some kind of long setting up here. So, really got to choose your time frame and ask yourself what kind of trader you want to be. Yeah, the daily hasn't even come in yet. I would argue that the daily needs a new low than a new regain. But either way, pick your time frame. Let's fire through some alts. What do you got?
I'm loading up SXP. I know, we were talking about this one. This is, I think it's bearish, but it's.
Oh, hey, it's sitting in my RLZ. That's why I was long in it.
I know it is the daily support level. If you are bullish, like this is, it's a tight invalidation. It's a great, it's a good high RR trade. I just don't like the market structure. This is the daily chart here. It's just these constant lows, right? Like literally constant fucking higher lows. Not necessarily lower lows here, but just these higher lows since all the way back to September. Like the volume, it's still, it's still decreasing here. I haven't seen any convincing buy volume come in on this just yet. I don't like the market structure. If this does break down, I think we could have a pretty high momentum move here, back down to this level. So this is really the origin of this entire move up here, right? Back down here at like 73, 70, 77 cents. I know it's a big range, but I would expect, this to be, if we're moving down quick, probably, pretty liquid. So we could see some deep wicks is what I'm trying to say here. So what would I be looking for to take this trade? And I would, is this traded on this? Is there I think there is. Yeah, there is. So I would take this trade. I do have access to it. What am I going to be looking for? Well, first, if it breaks this and holds below here, right? If we close below here, more importantly, I'm going to be looking for trade minimum 20%. On 10x leverage, looking good. So what are we going to look for in terms of lower time? Actually, I'll bring it down actually. Bring it down to the 4-hour so we get a better description of what price action might actually look like here. Ooh, actually, I'm gonna change what I just said. Again, that's, I like the daily levels, I do, but I do see this right here. So I'm going to throw that up there. Again, this is just a Wyckoff type thing, right? So carrying that there. So what we would be looking for, something like this. I need to figure out that mouse button, so I don't have to do this every time. Anyways, normally, you don't want to short the initial break. Just because it could, snap right back. So to minimize that risk, we like to short the throwback, right? We talk about that all the time.
Yes.
Kind of watching that on ETH/BTC right now, on gold. The Ethereum short-term trade was based off of that as well. So if we see this turn to resistance, I would be taking that short at minimum, down to 90 cents. I would be taking some off there. I would be expecting like this. If we failed through it, probably be a very sharp cliff type drop, capitulation, hopefully. And again, none of the alt markets, in my opinion, have seen true capitulation. They've just had a slow, steady grind down minus 70%. And that's probably the most brutal thing for people because while it's going down like that, they're holding on. They're holding on to that.
Well, the early parts of it, it's like, I'm a holder, I'm a believer, I'm going to catch the big bull next year. Well, good luck because the market is not going to make that easy for you. It may happen. I think these will fucking blow your face off next year, the year after, but they're going to test you.
Yep. If it does hold, this is the fourth retest, and I do not like seeing things tested that many times. Like a quad bottom, how often does that happen?
No, Jack. Actually, my buddy BTC Jack Sparrow, his favorite thing is never trust the fourth.
Exactly. Because and look at this, guys. Like this is just completely validates my thesis here. Every bounce we've had here, and I'm doing this.
Weaker. Yeah.
Momentum on a fucking declining triangle. Like bearish.
I should clarify that I closed my position. I broke my rule. I closed it before the invalidation, but I just wasn't feeling it. Yeah. So for what it's worth, I broke my own rule, but I am out of my SXP long. I lost some money on it, but like way less than I had originally planned.
And what's great about these setups here is like when you do get the capitulation, they are sharp snapbacks. Like that's when the fucking bottom is in, right? So if we see something like this, boom, 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 it's not going to sit down here. It might sweep those lows. It's going to bounce back hard to to this
Yeah.
level. Usually,
Make
right?
it really hard for you to get in. That's
Yeah.
the thing, right? Because and then it chills up there, and you're like, well, okay, sweet, I'm gonna buy it on the next pullback, and then yeah, good luck. You know, slide into the reload zone actually off those bottoms is my favorite play. But let's take a look at TRB.
All right.
Really glad you gave me that take on SXP because I was actually kind of missing my long because I just thought, if anything, I'd rather ride and die with my setups. But I cut it this week because of what I was seeing on dominance. I thought, why am I longing altcoins? Like, let's just start focusing on the majors while they're having fun. So I'm out of it. But TRB, for what it's worth, I just want to preface everything I say about altcoins with I am leaning towards, like, I'd say there is a like less than 20% chance that this is just the bottom and Bitcoin is going to now lose dominance and we're off and everything's great. So it's possible, which is why I'm still going to chart altcoins and I might even take some shots at them. But I think the overwhelming probability is that Bitcoin dominance is just getting started and it's probably heading up here. And again, that coincides with what we see on this ETH BTC chart getting down to that gap. So I just want to preface everything I'm about to say about everything with that because TRB actually looks pretty good here. But again, from my macro point of view, if I was taking a trade, I would have to size it down and I would have to be pretty chintzy with it. Now you can see here with this nice bounce off the bottom, really right off the 886 of this fib. When they hit, they look great, but auto longing those, as you can see, some people do apparently, but it's got its own risks right embedded in it. But the strong bounce to me is the confirmation. Okay, we're going to stall here. It's the slide back in, and I'll say this again and again. It's the slide back into that RLZ that I'm always watching for. So yeah, there was one there. There's a lot of these this week. Actually, you'll see it repeatedly today and just in general. And I look all over alts. We had the big rally. What was it? A week and a half ago. And everyone was like 30, 40% altcoin rallies. And right away, I'm just thinking, okay, cool. I'm going to start hunting those RLZs. And that takes patience because you got to sit there for days. And I'm all over social media, like running our Twitter account, staring at charts all day, hearing about people talking about, yeah, you missed the bottom, sucker. Who's bearish on alts? They're idiots. And then I'm sitting there like, damn it, I'm not long on anything. And you're missing a big 40% market-wide rally. So it isn't easy. But then it flips bearish for 4 or 5 days. That's actually when you want to be looking at these sort of sweet spots, because then you get this high risk, high reward entry, which I always talk about. You can take some size, you can risk to the lows, you get a nice tight invalidation, and your upside potential is huge. So is this the bottom on TRB? Don't know, doesn't matter. Is there a setup there? For sure. I think the confirmation here on the daily is actually really good. As far as like getting in there. Now this made a lower low. So, if I had to be a betting man, I'd say it's like chop suey coming up for a little bit. And if that's going to maybe, God, that got ugly really fast. Let me get rid of some of these squigglies. I think, I'm just leaning to general difficult trading as coming up. We had a really nice uptrend. We had a really nice downtrend. And typically you end that kind of a cycle with something that is much harder to trade. And that's actually where most people will give their money back to the market. So you're like capitulating your bag, then you're buying it back, then you're like feeling dumb, so you sell it. Like these are what like the unschooled people are doing, participants in the market. And they will get so sick of this market and they'll lose all flavor or all their capital. We've talked about this before. And that's when the new cycle can begin. Right? So
only then, once everybody has lost everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, if I was holding TRB through all of that, I mean, we're certainly, in my mind, closer to the bottom than the top. So I'm not too worried from these levels. And, I think there was a long that came in here. And same as I said for Uni, I think there's a smaller one. Always just looking for these, like, if I want to get in on something, right? It's a little sloppy, but like that kind of thing. Always looking for the higher lows, never chasing the new higher high, if that makes sense. Because there is a ton of potential. One thing you get, even if it's not a market bottom, this could happen in a lot of altcoins, is we could get like a multi-week rally where Bitcoin just rallied, right? So there's all this exuberance in the market. There's all this excitement. And then it trickles down into altcoins. That could totally happen, where we then just do something like this up into either the pump chaser fib, which is right around here of the whole market, or even as high as this short RLZ. I mean, and then come back, and that's part of forming the bottom. So yeah, there's going to be some sick trades in here.
I pulled up LTC for the next one here. I know this is something I don't think we've ever pulled up an LTC chart. I don't think.
Never once. Still haven't figured out what the use case is, but let's do it.
There is none.
Good to be clear on that.
But yeah, this is a really easy chart to look at here. It's a very easy chart to figure out what your trade setups are going to be and where your invalidation levels are. So we had a nice weekly consolidation level here. What was that, like 5 months, 6 months, almost a year. Jesus, almost a year of consolidation at this level. We finally broke up from there at $43. Looks good, initially at first sight, but it hasn't actually made a higher high or anything, right? So it hasn't actually confirmed a trend reversal just yet. It has not broken any horizontals. It has not broken any diagonals. It's just a nice up move in this range here, right? So I'm not putting too much weight on this diagonal. It only has 1-2 taps, like whoop-de-doo, right? So just delete it. Pay attention to the horizontals here. We still have 17% up to the range. So that's what we're going to be looking to get filled on that. We're going to see some bullish continuation. At that point, expect a little bit of a cool off period, maybe back to like $55 or something. But if we are looking for the range expansion trades, these are the levels that we're going to be watching. $79, $80, those former weekly highs back in February before the coronavirus. And look at that, right? So these blue ones are just my really old stuff. So I haven't charted this in a long time. And this is just a fantastic level that it tapped, right? So that's your macro. Below that level, LTC is probably headed to zero type situation. But above here, I'll be looking for these levels to get filled. And what's crazy about this is that this market structure is bearish until we're back above like 110. It's crazy.
It kind of reminds me of like the 6K drop, like the pre-6K drop in late 2018 for Bitcoin, where it's just like putting in this low, putting in the low, but lower highs all the way along. I'll tell you what, one use case for Litecoin used to be the speed of it. I used to actually use it to move around between exchanges until I caught bad slippage on one of the trades trying to do that. And I was like, screw you, LTC. But look, they are going to be one of the 4 listed on PayPal originally, along with Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. So don't sleep on the potential for a speculative rally in LTC. I mean, again, fundamentally, am I that excited about its future? Not really. But is it going to get its bids when the bid time comes? Oh, yeah.
I would assume so. And I'm just plotting out what I think I'm going, I could see happening here with a nice little staircase up, slow rally, right? And then finally in 2021, once the election is settled and all that stuff, maybe it won't take till 2021, but you never know. I'd be looking for that final drive up to 105.
Yeah, let's talk about Falcon Swap. It's not looking great. It's not looking great. It's lost a lot of its enthusiasm. Falcon Swap is a layer 2. Now, look, product could say is looking great. They just launched their beta, I believe, public beta, and and the product is interesting. They have basically they're going to aggregate orders on Uniswap, so that instead of every single order costing you a fee, when I make a buy, it collects a bunch of buys for like whatever 20-second period and then pools them all together and makes them in one transaction. So batch transactions, lowering your fees, which was a big problem in Uniswap, and essentially speeding things up in a way too. So it's going to be faster, cheaper, all that. And it's just a second layer on top of Uniswap, essentially. Falcon Swap. So cool idea. I think V3 may crush it. And I think there's a lot of other solutions around. So fundamentally, who knows? But it is interesting that the chart is still struggling despite their recent announcement of the beta going live. I think it was probably right there.
Yeah. We did well in the sale, but I think my problem with this stuff is that these projects that were rushed out, they only solve issues of the present. That means they can get replaced very quickly by the incumbents in the space. And that's what you're saying here with Uniswap 3.0. They could just wipe the board.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many solutions were created for the right now problem that Uniswap was dealing with, and that's cool. And ride the hype, and I'm sure the developers and a lot of early buyers and some traders, like, there's money being made here, and that's the name of the game. But are they building something groundbreaking that will have staying power? I'm not convinced, because like you said, this stuff's so open sourced. Uniswap V1 was out, Uniswap V2 came along, Uniswap V3 will come out inevitably someday, and it's going to render a lot of these sort of second layer technologies fairly obsolete. And that seems to be what the participants in the market are thinking, because they're not buying this stuff up too crazy.
No.
I must say, it had a ton of volume though for a few months. It was interesting. It was getting a lot of hype. And I'm not ready to call it dead just yet, but it is, it's chilling at these lows.
You can probably correlate that chart and its decline with the Uniswap volume.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's all that speculation on like,
Yep.
if X is popular and Y looks a lot like X, then I will long Y. So, this is probably what I would have to see to get excited about it. I think there's a trade here. Sorry for the ugly fib. This is chart X, which doesn't say fibs. Can't be bothered with going to make a new one. So I will simply stretch this out and point out that we are, if there was like a do or die long, although this is on Uniswap, so it's hard to have a stop loss, which would make me uncomfortable here. But, taking longs again against this, which would for now be sort of a higher low, yeah, there's something there. But it's not, given the 6,000 assets I could trade, this is not the one I'm going to pick.
Much better options.
Yeah, I think for all things considered, liquidity and order type, definitely. Now, what have you got next? I know we're knocking the list down. We got FSW, so we got XDAI. You want to take a crack at XDAI?
I think I should.
Then I'm gonna do another follow up with XIO, which I talked about the last week or two on stream. Just
all right.
a quick update on that.
Yeah, so XDAI stake. It's in a range. It's not something there's no trade to be had here per se just yet. Again, this is a confirmed nice bullish throwback here, right? So I'm calling this support right now. It would only be the second tap. So I would bid this level, 7.3-ish around there, with the idea that at the very minimum, even if the trade didn't work out, I would still be able to get at least something like this. So say it comes down, I would bid that level. And what would I be looking for? I'd be looking for this throwback to get retested at the very minimum, right? So, that's probably going to be what, a 15-20% move or something. So that's something, set some limit orders in there. You're probably going to get that price reaction. And, if it came back down, makes that higher low, and there you go. Add long your longs, right? So that's what I'd be looking for there. And to the upside, it's very, very messy here. But if we hold here, hold it around here, I'll just take these lows here from the far left right over here, so you guys can see on October 2nd there. Take those lows. If that holds, I could see it going back to the range highs, retesting that bearish throwback, right? Makes another higher and something like that, right? And then your target inevitably would be $30, right? Retargeting this range here. So what would that create? Well, it creates a new range. Wow, look at that, 17, and it's even wider, 17 to 30, right? So you got your first trade set up in this little area here. You would have your new trade set up in this range, and then finally, if it was able to break through this $30, you would have your next trade up to $42. So 3 ranges, 3 separate trades, an entry opportunity back down here around 7.3, 7.4. I wouldn't want to see this low loss, but it wouldn't be the end of the world as well, as long as this, again, the $7 would kind of be your invalidation mark. If that did break for whatever reason, yeah, you're going to be looking back down there at 4.2, around $5. But yeah, right now, no real trade to be had at the current market price, sitting at 13.8 right now. It's sitting in the mid range. Too much risk, whatever trade you make, right? It's a 50-50.
All right. There, you've heard it on stake. I imagine there's some staking involved in that one. Let's wrap today. We are getting just past the top of the hour. Let's take a look at XIO. This is one that I had up on my chart, as it did catch a really nice sort of full cycle. You guys have heard me talk my very limited knowledge on Elliott waves, just generally that sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C. And so we're kind of like, we've got through that cycle and we got a nice bounce off here, and we're just parked in this RLZ within an RLZ on this trend line. So I am getting interested in an XIO on a personal level as I start to look more and more into what Zachary Dash, their founder, was talking about on Facebook recently, about the flash staking. And I think that's a really novel concept. They're the first ones doing it. It's something that someone else somewhere could copy, sure. But for now, I think they've got first mover advantage on this pretty interesting concept, which basically means you could stake something and then get all of your interest up front. So just say I want to stake $1,000 and I want to receive my my interest. I don't have to wait for the period of the year to get all that interest. I can just get it all in a lump sum up front. My money is locked for the period of time, so no, you can't go rush and take it and your interest. And then, yeah, I mean, that's pretty sweet. So you're like, okay, I'm going to lock this up for a year. Instead of waiting for interest to trickle into my account, I just get it all at once. I can go spend it on something else or speculate on it. And I think that's going to be attractive to people. And then, of course, there's a penalty if you want to unlock your money early. So that would probably take back most of that pre-front-loaded stake, and that's how they protect themselves, and still give you the flexibility to leave your loan. So, anyways, quick shill on their new feature because I just think it sounds really interesting, and so I am watching it very closely around these levels as that sort of ramps up and gets started, and then people will actually do it, and they'll start bragging about their upfront liquidity they got, and they'll start shilling it. I think there could be some nice buzz there.
Yep. Finally, my last chart quickly. I'm actually going to get in there for you, Chris. Chris G, you're welcome. Aeon USD. Let me know when my
Aeon, my baby.
It's actually on a daily support level right now. Can you guys see what I'm seeing? It's all good.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good. All right, cool. So yeah, daily support. We're kind of sitting on it right now, 6 cents, 68.68. So as long as this level holds, it's okay. But if this level fails, probably going to have to see a retest of these, this lower block here, 0.46 all the way down to 0.36. The chart doesn't look great, I gotta say. Like, again, just from a straight, daily price action chart, just constant lower, 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 lower highs, lower, 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 lower lows, right? This has been a period of 2 months. So this is a clear fucking downtrend. No reversal just yet. Do you want to be shorting right here? No, you do not. This is the support. If it is going to bounce, it will be in this area. So yeah, I would wait for some confirmation here. It has given no indication of a reversal just yet. The volume looks pretty subsided as well.
Okay, now I know we said we were going to end, and I actually flipped back to my camera, but I'm back on screen share because you brought up my sweet, sweet love, Aeon. Now, this is something I just want to do a quick talk on this. I've mentioned this multiple times, and I think it might be happening, which means we have to talk about it because this is huge. This could be generational. If you're still bullish on this, I did not go and watch that Matt Spoke AMA. I've got it pegged for this weekend. I just want to hear what the latest is with the drama that caused some of this downside and blah, blah, blah. The TRS, which is their big token release schedule, that is ending in November. So that's actually coming up really soon. Now, there is no speculation on price at this point about that event, which is shocking to me. I thought that would be a really good Q4 catalyst. However, it is still coming. It is generally bullish. I think it's going to cut their inflation down to 1/8 of what it is right now. So 7/8 cut. That's better than a halving. I think there's something there. Now, look, this is why I want to talk about this. We lost these lows. Now, this is where I had support drawn. You could arguably even have it here because it kind of played that level. It's probably a better level, to be honest. I will admit that there's a better one than what I had, and so let's go check it out. So we have here, we have a low, the fourth, don't trust it, bounce, break down. So on this break of all-time lows, what should have been a bottom, I mean, look at this buy volume that came in. I was so sure that there was going to be a bottom here versus Bitcoin because of this kind of buy volume. Like whoever the hell supported that price has clearly let it be for now. So on this breakdown, I would expect to see a lot of selling. Would you not, Nick?
Yeah, high momentum.
But where are the sellers? I don't see them. I think, and this was what I was speculating, that maybe this breakdown of these lows, remember I said last week, I'm not going to long it here, but the loss of these lows, I'm going to be watching for volume. Nobody's selling. I mean, relatively speaking, there is no sellers left from what it looks like here. So is it auto long? Well, that's a tricky sell for me because that's not really how I trade after just losing all-time lows to just rush in to be long. So, if I want to get really cheeky on the hourly here, do I sneak in here and try to get some off these lows? Like, there's something to be said for that. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is keep a close eye on those lows. What the heck just happened to this one here? Oh, yeah, there we go. I'm going to keep a close eye here. If we get up back into here and regain this, sure, I'll be buying at a premium to what it just was. But that's going to be such a sick signal. And I now have to obviously give the example of this in action because Chain is actually kind of a sister token to Aeon did this, and this is where I learned this. So look at this. Same kind of thing, right? Earlier this year with the big, this is actually kind of along with that Aeon breakout. And we had these lows. They broke, but where were the sellers? There was no sellers, no interest. So, price tried to explore lower, clear signal that nobody had interest selling down there. It regained the level, and then look what happened. So keeping an eye, when you lose big lows like that, it should be a massive event. It should be like, oh my God, run to the hills, sell everything. So the fact that Aeon has no real selling right now is a really strangely bullish signal. So just my 2 cents. And that's not just, because I have a bag and blah, blah, blah. I have an old free bag, but that's exactly what I was looking for. So it's actually really cool. Not one big red candle here.
Yep.
In fact, all big green candles. So call me crazy, but if this thing reverses down here, that's hugely bullish. I'm going to be longing the shit out of it. All right, enough said. Now, real quick, I just noticed actually, Crypto Messiah is live on Periscope, on Twitter, at Hxro Labs. Looks like he's doing that Pokemon stream with Crypto Nico and JB, the Crypto King. So as we wrap up here, guys, keep that in mind. If you're still hanging out and you just want to take in some more content, check them out over there on Periscope. They are live. Now, let's get back to our screens as we wrap today on this. Yeah. The most week.
Well, then we'll close with some final thoughts.
Final thoughts. You're behind me. Oh, there it is. Okay, so final thoughts. What a week. That's a crazy week we've had in crypto this week. Bitcoin leading the way. ETH trying to keep up. Ethereum, Bitcoin looking pretty bearish. And then, altcoins are kind of stuck in hiatus. So mostly just waiting and watching the dominance. It's at a critical level right now. And in the meantime, just taking my trades. Some paper, some real, and protecting capital at all times.
Yeah, sounds good. From my final thoughts on this breakdown is that, we're coming up to that bearish throwback right now on Ethereum around 411, 412. If I see rejection there, I will be reshorting. If I see a move back up above the bearish throwback, I'll be getting long, because this to me will be the throwback level. While it didn't hit all the way down, it did tap the first part of it. And more importantly, it had broken the bearish market structure back to the bulls. And I'll be looking to get long. Same thing idea with your own Bitcoin. If it gets back.
I can't see your screen, by the way.
I was just throwing out the numbers.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
What would be an alert? Can we get a high-low alert? Let's end with that. We'll get a high-low alert on Bitcoin. So if this level breaks, watch for this. If this level breaks, watch for that. What alerts should I set?
If 12.7 breaks down, then I would be looking for that 12.3, 12.4 level, possibly down to 12.2. And if it breaks to the upside above 12.93 or so, 12.94, then I would be looking for a retest of 13.1, maybe all the way up to 13.5. And then Ethereum, like I said, below 4.12, 4.13, I'll be looking for that 3.95 level to get filled out. Above that level, I'm targeting 440.
Perfect. All right. And as usual, we will be active on Twitter, so you can always hit us up in the comments over there and put out some chart requests, if anything. Otherwise, I'll be back on Monday to fire off some charts and follow up with where we left off today. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend and enjoyed the show today. If you did, hit the like, hit the sub, and if you're not already, following us on Twitter would be great. At Hxro Labs, at Real Hxro Labs on Twitter. Otherwise, until time, always play from a position of strength. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.